Okay, I can get down with that.
Yeah.
Sounds like awesome.
Get down with recording.
All right. Sometimes I say things and I realize like I'm an old man. I can get down with that. Oh God.
Somebody sent me a meme the other day. It was a list of it was just a list of phrases on let's get out of here, let's skedaddle, let's like a whatever.
Come on, team and stuff.
Yeah, just it was a whole list of things. It was if you say any of these, you're old, and I'm like, Christ, I say every
All
one of those. I hate this.
I don't have any thoughts left.
They're all gone.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Talk about a scene, it's what we're doing. Come and check it out, it's what we're all about. 561 Music!
Welcome to 561 Music. My name's Ben.
And I'm Hector.
And how are you, Hector?
Well, I had a small heart attack today.
Really?
Yeah. So...
Oh, you didn't actually have a small heart attack?
I did not have an actual small heart attack.
Thank God for that. Scared the shit out of me.
I felt like I had a heart attack today. I got my anxiety issues, and I usually have it at bay.
I have them too, man.
So today I was doing some photography, some real estate photography like I do, and I was flying my drone. And what actually happened was I was flying my drone where I shouldn't have been flying my drone, if you will.
Some illegal dronage.
No, it was completely I filed my flight plan, FAA stuff, all the stuff that I got to do, and I was flying it, correctly. What happens is the drone company that I use, the drone from the company that I use, it has these geofences, and so basically it knows where you're supposed to be and not supposed to be, and where you're allowed and not allowed, and and there's some areas that you're allowed if you have special permission, and so typically, as you take off, if you're anywhere near one of those areas, it'll say, do you have permission to be here?
Yeah.
And then you say yes, and it sends you a code, and then you punch in the code, and you're basically taking full responsibility for, hey, yes, I'm allowed to be here. I've gotten the permission to do this.
Yeah.
It typically does that as you're taking off if you're anywhere near these areas. So the place I was supposed to go to was a gated community. The real estate agent wasn't there. It was a whole nightmare, the whole thing that happened, okay?
Yeah.
So I ended up they were real adamant about the listing has to go up. Oh my God, it's got to be, go. It has to be tomorrow, et cetera. And so I'm like, all right, let me see what I can do. So I go to an adjacent neighborhood because these drones have like a 2-mile range on them.
Sure.
So I go to an adjacent neighborhood and I take off and I fly the drone right over there. No big deal, right? And apparently this back end of this neighborhood that I was flying into is a special permissions area. It's not a no-fly zone, but it's a special permission area. And so instead of the drone telling me, hey, special permission area, do you have permission? It waited until it was 400 feet in the air and a mile and a half from me. And then it all of a sudden popped up on the screen and blocked my view of what I was looking at and said, hey, do you have permission? And I'm like, yes, I have permission. And I'm punching everything in and it's going, error, wrong code, this and that.
No.
Well, in the process of this, the drone was drifting and then I lost connection to the drone.
Uh-oh.
So I'm having a heart attack. This is a $1,500 drone.
Sure,
I'm having a heart attack. I'm like, I'm going to lose the drone. Every scenario is going through my head. I'm going to lose a drone. Best case scenario, it falls in the lake. Worst case scenario, it falls in someone's Bentley or something, and now I got to go deal with the insurance companies.
Worst case scenario, goes over some military stuff and you have to go to jail.
I'm freaking out over here. I drive around. I try to go back into that other neighborhood. I'm not allowed in, of course, whatever. So I'm driving around, trying to get the connection, whatever. I can't, Finally, it comes up and it gives me a code that I punch in and it works. And it says, okay, the code worked. But I didn't have a connection to the drone. So at this point, I'm like, all right. So I go back to where I started from and I park for a minute and I'm sitting there I got my head down a little bit. I'm a little bit sad. I'm like, I can't believe I just, that was a rookie mistake. I've been doing this for a few years now and that's a rookie mistake. I should not have done that. And, I'm sitting here thinking I lost a $1,500 drone and I have my sunroof open on my truck and all of a sudden I hear zzz, and I look up. Apparently, I had set my settings a while back and didn't know that if I lose connection, the drone will drop to 100 feet and fly back to its original position and land.
Baby.
The stupid thing landed right next to my truck. I
the
was
wonders
like
of modern
like a
technology.
5-year-old. I was doing a dance next to the truck. I'm like, yeah, drone time. Yeah, it was so stupid, dude.
If you start, sending small things that are super expensive up into the air, every now and again something's going to go wrong.
I usually am pretty. I used to get a lot of anxiety when I first started flying the drone because it was like, you're right. I'm sending $1,500 in the air, and a lot of times I'm doing beachfront properties and I'm flying it out over the ocean. And that falls in there. Goodbye. But I've pretty much gotten over it. Like I've been like,
Sure.
I do it all the time. It's second nature now. But this was just next level today, man. I was like, God, I can't believe this is happening to me right
I
now.
understand
Can't
why
believe
it's
this is
so involved
happening.
because, it's privacy issues and stuff. I get it.
It was
But
driving me nuts.
It seems simultaneously sensible and like way too sort of like over the top.
Yeah. I mean, there's been worse situations where like, you're flying and there's no airport per se around you, and so there's no restrictions. It's it's completely Class C. You can fly, do whatever you want, and but there'll be like somebody with a private helicopter or something in their backyard, and they suddenly take off, and you hear and you look back, and there's a helicopter 150 feet off the ground, and you're at 300 feet with your drone going, I'm going to kill somebody. Like, I'm gonna take out. Yeah, it's there's moments where it's just like, anyways. So yeah, that was my story today.
That's a good story. When you said you had a heart attack, I really honestly thought that you had a heart attack.
I almost did, man. My anxiety was just like, my heart was like pounding out of my chest. And I was like, this is not happening.
So this weekend we played at O'Shea's and Paddy Mac's, and James and I went over to the Square Grouper as well.
Yep.
It was a fun weekend. We played our new song like a million times.
We did.
We're just trying to get that nailed down so we can record it and actually know how to play it.
I mean, I think we do it pretty well, aside from the fact that I keep forgetting my lyrics. But other than that, we do it pretty well.
Totally. Yeah, well, it's we have a bit of a treat today. We have Kim Donovan, aka Stage Mom, with us today. How's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Yeah, really well. It's we do something very similar, which is try and promote local music through the form of spoken word.
Yes, you just do it more professionally than I do.
No, we always hear such good things of bands we get on here and like different people talking about what you, all the wonderful things you do for the scene and all the gigs you put on, and it's super. We couldn't be. The whole idea. The funny thing about what we do is, it's like the opposite of a competition. It's
absolutely.
It's like we're all basically trying to do the same thing, which is make music in the area more.
Better.
Right. Yeah.
Normalize going out to shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So it's just so great to hear other people doing it and doing it so well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's awesome. How did it all start?
Honestly, I don't know how to play any music. I can't carry a tune. My daughter was in a band for years, and then when they dismembered, I had talked about having a podcast because I loved going out and meeting the different bands because I pretty much was like their band manager that didn't make any money. Yeah. And so I would go out and meet all the bands.
I don't know what that's like at all.
Right? So book all their shows. When they dismembered, I was like, that podcast I've been talking about, maybe I'll start that now, and then I'll just bring all the bands to meet me, and I could get to know them. It was right after COVID, so then I said, I'm going to buy the microphone, and once I bought the microphone, I was like, that's it. I'm done. Like, I'm committed now. I have a microphone. And the first podcast I had was with Young Fiction.
Yeah, okay.
And we did it on my back patio out back with the airplanes, everything. It was horrible, but it was so long. We had a lot of fun.
You don't realize how noisy the outside is until you do it.
Until you need peace and quiet.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh my God, it's really noisy out here. The damn crickets, everything. Mm-hmm. So then after the podcast, I showed Dylan my loft upstairs. He was like, with the way this loft is, you should probably have done the podcast up here. I'm like, I knew it. Everybody told me not to do it up here. So then I moved it upstairs.
Nice one.
Yeah.
That's cool. And Young Fiction was the first one.
Yep. They were my first one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have even more in common. That's great.
Full circle.
Yeah, totally. We've sort of like passed like ships in the night, but never really like got to have a situation where we could sit down and talk to you. So I'm super glad you made the effort and came up here to talk
exciting.
to us. Absolutely. So there's a lot of sort of crossover between our podcasts. 'Cause we don't really like. Where exactly are you based?
In Davie, down in
Davie.
Broward.
Okay, so we're not a million miles apart. It's about an hour apart or something. But in terms of the bands that we interview, there's a fair amount of crossover. We were just talking earlier about Brayton because he lives up here and goes to school down in Miami, so he's been on both. Yeah, he's amazing, isn't he?
He's amazing, unbelievable.
Totally. Is there anyone that you've interviewed lately that really stands out to you?
As far as a band or as the podcast interview?
But let's go with both.
Yeah. Okay, so I had a show. When was it? It was this year.
Yeah.
Because I was doing shows for bands and it was just all the same bands. So I was like, you know what? I'm sure there's new bands out there. So I had made a post and said, if you've been in a band for 6 months to a year and want to do a show, let me know. And I had all these bands reach out to me. By the way, that night, every band was amazing. It was like, wow, where have they been hiding?
Yeah.
But there was this one band that they did come over for a podcast, and I actually just brought them to one of my shows out in California, Vember.
Okay.
They're in Boca, so they're not far from here.
Oh, cool.
They're
Vember.
so nice. They're like
the
a
last
band.
half of November.
Let me tell you something. I usually try to guess what the band name means, and I was right. All their birthdays are in November.
Oh, cool.
And the
Mine
singer
too.
and I have the same birthday.
Really?
But
maybe we have the same birthday. Mine's the 19th of November.
Oh, mine's the 29th.
Oh, okay. It's not bad. It's close. It's not too bad.
Yeah. But that was one band. They're nice guys. They were literally the first band. I've been doing this for a couple of years. You guys have been doing it a long time. They were the first band that actually stuck around and helped me clean up a show.
Oh, there you go.
I was like, what is happening? I thought they were sticking around to tell me off or something because it ran a little late. And I was like, they're carrying stuff to the car. What's happening? That never happened to me before.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
It definitely says something about a person if they're helpful like that. And actually, we're rather spoiled up here for folks like that. Like, do you remember like Ricky and like on the first one, he was super helpful. And,
Ricky and
and Keith.
And Dominic and Keith. There's been a lot of people that have
They're just super nice, and it is nice, isn't it? Like, that's the kind of that's when you feel like it's more than just shows that there's actually a scene and people care about each other. Yeah. So, what kind of gigs have you put on since you've been? Because I hear about them through Hector and online and stuff, but I'd love you to talk about them in your own words.
Well, I've done all kinds. My first one, I did my first one probably about 5 months after I started my podcast. It was my favorite by far ever show that I put on.
Oh, cool.
It was at a brewery, Lauder Ale in Port Everglades. It was open to close. There was like 18 bands, and it was like Woodstock. It was the craziest thing. It was so fun, and
Sick.
it's like I'm having fun doing all these other shows, but nothing tops that show. And it was probably just the newness, and it was right after COVID, so not many bands were doing shows. So when they all got together at that show, they were exchanging information, and it was really cool. And then they were doing shows together after that.
Oh, sick.
So I was like, this is exactly why I did this show, so that they could market themselves and meet each other. But that was my favorite. And then I would do little ones here and there. And then I did the battle. It was called the Stage Mom Tourney.
Yeah, that was fun.
Where it was, I don't know, like 9 different shows with 3 bands, and they were competing to play a main event at Revolution Live.
Yeah.
So it was like an overall leaderboard. So it was the top 8 bands, I believe.
Okay.
Was that what it was?
Something like that.
Something like that. And then I think I added one in, like a Stage Mom favorite.
Sure, yeah.
And then after that, I've done 2 shows at the Viper Room in California, and I have another one coming up.
Yep.
That's wild. That's super cool.
And I have a battle actually coming up at Propaganda. I haven't even announced it yet, so I'll announce it here. August 10th, it's a battle. I haven't even announced the lineup. I know the lineup. It's amazing.
Oh, cool.
Another cool thing about that is I have 10 bands on that lineup, and I only know 4 of them.
That's
And they
awesome.
all submitted, and I was like, whoa, these bands are amazing. So I'm super excited to see all these new bands. And the winner of that gets to go to California
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
play the Viper Room at my next event. And then Spin Style, the photographer, he's offered to do a photo shoot in LA for the band as well.
Oh, very nice.
So,
So let me ask you, like, when you do your events, like for example this battle, and you said you had bands submit and stuff, do you just let any band that's, like you said, over 6 months together, et cetera, do you let any band submit? Is there criteria? Do they have to have been on your podcast? Do they have to have original music, et cetera?
It used to be where I would only do shows for bands that were on my podcast, but then I started running out of bands. But then it's anybody could submit. And I didn't even pick the lineup. I went to a panel made up of my sisters and brother-in-laws. Because I was like, as fair as I am, I know I wouldn't have been totally unbiased. I would have been like, but I like this person and this band. Oh my God, they're so nice. So I just sat there, I played the videos for them and I had them rate them. And then we got our
we do, so we do the 561 Music Festival.
Right.
We do a lot of little events and things like that, but we do the festival once a year. And that's, that was, when we first started it out, that was kind of the criteria that I laid down was, okay, it had to have been, it was the end of our first year, celebrating our first year of the podcast, so it had to have been bands that were on the podcast.
Right.
Fast forward to the second festival, we had a few repeats, not a lot, and then we had, other bands, and they were also on the podcast. Well, we just finished the third one, and again, the criteria was bands that were on the festival, and I started tweaking the criteria, like, if you played one of the other ones or two of the other ones or something, you couldn't have played this one. You couldn't play. I think this was the third one, I guess.
I thought it was a little bit strict when you said that one of the criteria has to be that they have to hold their breath underwater for over 3 minutes.
Well, that was that too. But we started thinking about it and kind of taking a page out of your book, and I just feel like it's not that we're running out of bands. I mean, we have 20 bands at that show, and we have 50 some odd bands or whatever, 50 bands a year on the show. But it just becomes a situation where, like, I see bands that haven't necessarily been on the podcast, and I'm like, oh damn, they're really good. I wish I can get them on that, but they don't fit the criteria, right? So I think this year we're going to kind of take a page out of your book, and we're gonna just open it up to submissions, and then, but we'll do it earlier, and then if some of the bands that we pick haven't been on the podcast, we'll give them an opportunity to come on the podcast prior to the festival.
It sort of kills two birds with one stone at that point, doesn't it?
Yeah. We get more bands on the podcast, and we get But
and ultimately, really, the only thing that's important is that bands are playing in front of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's been. I don't know about you. I'll ask a little bit about your journey with it, but. What I found through doing this is that we have met and got to know just so many people. It's like it was a side of the whole thing that I just wasn't expecting. But the networking aspect of it is just incredible.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Like it's been. I'm a musician, so. Like, just it's directly been beneficial to what I do. It's like, I've gone from a situation where I knew quite a lot of people to just like Hector and I and Justin know everybody now.
Right.
It's so cool. Yeah. It's like that's been a total side benefit that for some reason didn't occur to me before we started.
The funny thing that I've noticed, which is just blows my mind, like if I go to a show, people will come up like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I literally felt like a celebrity at my last show in California.
Yeah.
One of the guitarists for the bands was like, I can't believe I'm meeting you in person. I'm like, what are you talking about?
That's so cool.
Like, I'm literally just someone that bought a microphone.
It's funny because we go, with Killbillies, we play all the time. And so we very rarely get like a Friday or Saturday night off. But when we do, Kelly and I like to go out and go see some music. Well, sometimes Gavin will come with us. And
that's right.
Every now and then we'll walk into a venue, Propaganda or something like that, go see some friends or whatever. And we'll walk in and 8, 10, 12, 15 people that aren't necessarily the bands that are playing that night, just people.
Right.
And they're coming up, they're like, "Hey, what's up, Hector? What's up? Oh, man, oh, great episode." And they're all talking to me, whether it's Killbillies or the podcast. And Gavin's always, every time, he's like shaking his head. He's like, "I can't take you anywhere."
So funny.
Right? I love it. I love it, though.
That is so funny.
No, it's good times. It's been great. And just that, from a work perspective, I just can't tell you how useful it's been. Like, what would you say that your favorite thing about doing all this is? It's a bit of a difficult question, but
just getting to know the kids. And
yeah.
I've met so many. I have nothing bad to say. I'm not gonna lie. There's maybe I could count on one hand the bad things I could say about a couple of them that have come through.
Sure. I thought you were going to say Gavin.
No, not at all. But
I could count on one hand the things I hate about Gavin.
Right. So I thought she was going to say. I mean,
there's so many different walks of life, and I've really started to understand today's day and age, the kids of today.
Sure.
Like I used to have arguments with my kid about like her mindset and my mindset, and because we grew up in different times. But I've learned how to understand it more, and I guess kind of be more considerate of what how they are. Like, because I definitely was pretty hard about it at first, but after getting to know the kids and understanding them, it's really opened me up.
That's a good point. I find with the combination of doing this podcast and the teaching, because I don't have kids, and so I'm not getting it directly from, families. So just being here at Live Music Community is, it's just, being around kids like that, that's how I agree with you. It's just, that's how, you just sort of stay up to date with what's going on and in touch with the youth. And it's important to me too. Mm-hmm. I love that side of it.
Yeah.
How do you find your bands? Do you let them submit to you, or do you just?
When I first, a lot of bands, they just continue to reach out to me. If I see one I really like, then not that I'm seeking it out, like and I'll reach out. But I have a lot of bands, like I'm pretty booked up until like the end of July right now. Like I'll try to take a break here and there because I am a mom, a real mom, not just a stage mom. So I try it for like vacations, and just sometimes my youngest will be like, oh God, we got a podcast, because we do them in my house. Yeah. So everybody's got to go to their rooms. My husband's got to get the dog, bring him into the bedroom. So it's a big production for the whole entire family. But yeah.
That's cool though. I'm glad everyone's on board. That shows that you guys are like, very supportive of each other.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I got to give it to my husband. I can't say I would have stuck around this long dealing with this nonsense on top of the podcast and all these strange people coming into our home, knowing where we live. And then, now I'm doing all these events. He's just like, whatever.
I 100% know how that feels, because I have a home studio in my house. And, I try these days, I try to just get one or two members of it. But I used to have 7 or 8 bedreadlocked people just marching through my living room, It's like, I don't know. I at one point in time that didn't bother me, but it's starting to bother me a little bit. Yeah. Just, just want a place to yourself, you know what I mean? So these days I try and do it a bit smaller. But I know what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
You think, you don't really think about that until it's happening, and then you go, all these people are in my house.
Yeah, there was this one article that came out that got resurfaced by some of the local scene about one in particular member of a band that had done something that they were arrested for. And then my husband said, has this person been in our house? And I'm like, he was supposed to, but he canceled. So I guess that's lucky, but I mean, that's another side to having it at the house. That's kind of like, but.
Have you thought about doing a studio somewhere? Or?
I've thought about it. If I did, I have to bring my green and white couch.
It's a vibe. That's the thing at your house. There is a vibe there. You capture a vibe. So I get why you want to keep doing it there. It's awesome. It's a very different feel than this. We're sitting in the band room at Live Music Community, and it's not like an obnoxiously sort of stressful environment, but it's not sitting on a couch.
Yeah. Right, with my little fridge for the ones that are of age to.
Well, that's the thing. People come in here, band after band after band. They come in here and they're like, "Whoa, this is cool! You guys got a real studio, and it's it's this, it's that, it's so pro." But it is, and so because it is, it doesn't feel homey like your couch.
Well, we can get a couch. We can
get
a couch, man.
But then we'll be
recliners.
Would we be biting your vibe at that point?
Like Chandler and Joey with the recliners.
Oh my God, we need recliner love seats, man, with the drink holders and stuff.
We could get a day bed. And we could lie in it under the covers just with little heads popping out behind you. Have you heard of Morecambe and Wise?
No.
Okay, so if you're listening to this, look up Morecambe and Wise. Google Morecambe and Wise bed, and then you will laugh.
Okay, then. We'll leave it at that.
They're an English comedy duo from the 1970s. No one's going to get it unless they look it up. So, I guess have we been doing it roughly the same amount of time, a couple of years? How long have you been doing it?
I did my first podcast December of 2021.
Okay,
so we did our first one in March of 21, so we're just a few months off.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think that something about the pandemic, it opened people up to new things,
Yeah.
new
It
opportunities.
did. Yeah.
And it also made a lot of us a lot more savvy with technology. Not that I was that bad before, because I do this kind of thing for a living, but it just in terms of like the going live on, on social media and things
Right.
like that. This place, live music community, got loads better. Like, he decided to do. This place was running live streams for bands during the pandemic, and so a lot of this stuff was originally bought for live streams.
Right.
And then when I think we sort of all thought that live streams was going to continue to be like a really awesome thing for bands, which it's not that it. It took like a big dip after that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't quite stay with so, it sort of pivoted to doing other things with the stuff. But, we still have the facility to do live streams here. Maybe
Yeah.
we should start them up again.
The cool thing about the live streams here during the pandemic and stuff, when Justin was having bands come in here, he would basically give them the facility. He would run the live stream for them, and he would encourage through the chat. He would run the chat for them, and it would all be on the screen up there and stuff. And he would encourage the audience to tip the bands. So the bands
Oh.
would come in here for free, and they had an opportunity to make money when there
Nice.
wasn't an opportunity for them to make money
Yeah.
because everything was
Wow.
closed.
Okay.
Yeah, that was cool,
fun.
man.
I think
That
my
was fun.
kids' band came through here when they were still together, the band that broke up that motivated me to get the podcast. I think that when we got here, she was like, oh, we played here. It was during the pandemic. It
What
was
are they called
for
again?
Saving Harold.
Saving Harold. That's a cool name.
Yeah.
I will have to ask, because I didn't work here then. I've only worked here for about a year and a half, something like that.
Okay.
But about the same amount of time we've been doing the podcast here. But Justin, we'll have to ask Justin if he remembers. I'm sure he does. Yeah, man.
Your sense of time is so warped.
How long have we been?
You're
working
like,
here?
it's only been like a year and a half. About the same time we've been doing the podcast.
Yeah.
We just said that we've been doing the podcast for 3 years, for over 3 years.
Whoa.
And then
I
you're
have
like,
no sense of
so
time.
it's about a year and a half. No, it's like twice that.
It's exactly twice that. Yeah, okay, got it. Yeah, you're not wrong. My sense of time is warped. Christy asked me earlier today, when did the ceiling, because we had like our ceiling for
Yeah,
remember when
yeah,
ceiling
yeah.
did? And I was like, I don't know, about 2 months ago. And it was so long
It was like
ago.
6 months ago, man.
It was even more than that. It was August of last year.
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah, I still kind of think of myself as being like in my mid-20s. I'm definitely not there.
I mean,
I feel that way too.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
yeah. So you do a lot of cool stuff that I follow your stuff and then
Say it, Hector.
And then I'm totally jealous of your podcast. 100%.
My podcast?
Oh, 100%. No, there's a lot of things you do that I'm like, man, how do we do that? But I'll tell you, so you do shows, we do shows, but it's different. Like you do shows. Let's start with the fact that let's just call it what it is. The South End just tends to have better venues, not better venues. I misspoke. I don't want to say that we don't have good venues here, but you guys just have bigger venues, more accessible, and more of them.
Yeah.
More variety, more options.
Well, there's more people.
Yeah. And so
Way more people.
Yeah.
So we, when we have a show and we do it like at Respectables or whatever, like we love it. It's great. You know, it's fantastic. And then you have a show and it's down at I always forget the name of it. The big
Revolution Live?
Yeah, Revolution. Yeah. So you'll do one
I
at
always get
Revolution, and then
that
I'm like, damn it! I wish we had like a Revolution up here, but we don't, and that's the problem. The only venues like that we have are like the I Think Amphitheater. Well, that's just way too
Right.
big.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh
my God, we should do a gig.
So we should.
That would be awesome.
Totally should.
If we team up, we could do it.
We could.
But yeah, and so I would see you do these shows, and I'm like, man, this is awesome, and it just. But it did. I have to say, like, it did inspire and spark us a little bit to do more and more shows here, regardless of
That's
where
good.
they were.
Yeah.
And then the more time went on, the more it was like, because we were hyper focused on 561. We wouldn't even go up into the 772 or
Right.
anything. And then slowly that started trickling in, and then we started getting some bands for the South, and we started expanding, whatever. And then I see you're doing, you've got bands like Young Fiction or whatever that are from up here. And then now you're going to be doing something in propaganda. And I love that we're all just kind of, like he said, it's not a competition. And
No.
so the fact that it's all starting to meld together and it's just bringing all the scene together, I absolutely love this.
Yeah.
And we will be doing some stuff together.
Yeah, we will.
I feel like the cool thing about all of this is that it's definitely working. Like, so it's like there are more shows. People do know each other better.
Right.
Like
Yep.
the whole reason
Yep.
why both you and we did this is working.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we wouldn't exist if it wasn't working.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's
It
true.
would have fizzled out.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's like
And
that band Vember that I told you about. I brought him to LA, and then there, like no one knew him there, and they got booked for more shows here in Miami now. So they have a show on Friday night with some of the bands that they flew out to LA for the show. They weren't playing that one, and I was like, "That's awesome!" You know,
Yeah.
they're a new band, and they were liked that much.
So tell me a little bit more about, tell us a little bit more about like the Viper Room show, for example. You, the first one
She
you
just
booked.
called up Johnny Depp and was like,
Of course. I kind of figured.
yeah, I mean, he's on speed dial.
Yeah, she's like, "Hey, Johnny." She likes to call him Captain. So the first one you booked out there, you set everything up, and then the bands all made their way out there and stuff, and you did that. Now I know you did another one, and then you have another one. Now is that you still doing them, or are they now?
No, it's me.
It's just still you doing
Yeah.
them. Okay, that's awesome.
yeah, man.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Was it just a question of like calling the Viper Room and saying you want to do a gig there?
So I got this email. I thought it was fake from the general manager. And so then I Googled who's the general manager. And then I'm like, well, maybe this could possibly still be like,
Yeah, like
hoax.
some kind of elaborate.
but then
hoax,
I
yeah.
was like, I did a lot of research before I responded. Like I
Yeah.
Googled
And
the
that's
email. I
wise
was like,
because-
it's Tommy Black at viperroom.com. Like this has got to be.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, one of the nicest guys too. So nice.
So
Nice.
just reached out and was like, "Do you want to do some?"
Yeah.
shows?" Wow. Cool.
So, yeah. So now, like you said, I got the other one coming up, and the battle. And Tommy's actually my battle. I have actual judges, and
Nice.
Tommy is flying out here to be a
Oh,
judge.
that's awesome.
so
rad.
I feel like he's got a really good. He's going to be a great one because he also played with Scott Weiland.
Yeah.
He's had how many bands come? He's been the general manager for almost 30 years.
Yeah.
So he knows music.
Sure.
So I have him as a judge. He's going to fly out. And then I have Ashley Oak. She usually does like my hosting for my
Yeah.
bigger events.
Yeah.
And then it's not confirmed yet, but I'm hoping to get, and I don't know, you guys, did you grow up here in the 90s?
I was here my entire life.
So did you ever know the band Load? It was a local, okay, so Bobby Load's brother, I'm trying to see, I thought it would be a very good tribute because it's all local bands.
Yeah.
And they were one of the biggest local bands.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm seeing if he could be
awesome.
a judge too. So
Yeah, that's
Sick.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
That's. I think that battles are fun. I understand that it is my problem, but there's something about competition and music together which sort of irks me slightly. But it's not. It isn't really that though, is it? You know what I mean?
Ben's issue with it is that if there's a winner, there has to be a loser, and he feels bad for them.
Right, yeah.
Because it's not that they suck.
Right.
They just didn't get the number one spot.
Right,
And
yeah.
so that's what bugs Ben about it.
Right.
I think it's just some kind of deep ingrained sort of insecurities that
Yeah.
I would lose it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel that way too. I feel really sad. Like when I was like, I personally I got so many submissions, and I personally sent a message to all the bands that didn't make it because I felt so bad. And I'm like, but if you can maybe make it to the Viper Room one day, maybe we can get like.
Yeah.
I just felt so bad like telling these bands no.
Yeah.
So I completely understand.
The fact that there's
Yeah.
the winner gets such a cool thing, the whole thing is totally fine. I understand I do. It is in there though. It's like with the talent shows on TV and stuff as well. Something like I don't know.
It's a personal problem with Ben.
yeah, it is. Yeah, no, I think I was just never very good at team sports. It all comes down to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's a great thing to do, and it's a way to kind of like drum up a little bit of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Get people to try hard to be the best they can.
Yeah.
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the bands were super nice, responding back, saying, "Oh, it's okay. You know, we understand. You had a lot of submissions and blah blah blah." It was just, it wasn't up to me. Blame my sisters and my brother.
See, we need to do that. We need to, like, instead of picking the bands for the big festival.
Oh, there you go.
We should just be like,
abdicate responsibility.
It was a panel of judges. It was out of our hands because somebody's always upset or bent out of shape.
Yeah, it's in the DMs giving us. Giving us all this.
Come on, I didn't get it.
Totally.
Because I don't like it.
Well, why don't we just watch some ads and then come back? Does that sound like a good idea?
Let's do it, man.
All right.
Oasis Root Kava Bar is in Sea Grape Square on Indiantown Road, and it is a kava bar. If you don't know anything about kava, it's a Polynesian root that you grind up and you mix with water, and it has been in Polynesia for potentially thousands of years. It's an old thing that they used for kind of ceremonial and also sort of leisure purposes. It's meant to be something where, that brings people together. You all take a shell of kava and chink them together and say bula and have it together like that. It's meant to be something to bring people together. It has a kind of an effect, which is, I guess, a kind of a slightly warming effect. It just kind of makes you feel nice. It's not particularly intoxicating. It's not like drinking alcohol. So the atmosphere in a kava bar is sort of like a cross between a regular bar and a coffee house. It's pretty chill in there. You get all sorts of different types of kava bars. Some of them are more like a club, there's sort of like blacklight and EDM playing, and some of them are more like a cafe. This is one of the cafe type of ones. It's super chill in there. If you're looking for somewhere to, I don't know, maybe go and do some work on your laptop or go and have a chat with friends, it's perfect for that kind of thing. There's a foosball table in there if that's your jam, or baby foot as they call it in France. Yeah, Jim, the owner, is a really cool guy, and he has very kindly sponsored our podcast. So thank you very much for that, Jim. They also do a poker night in there. All sorts of things going on at Oasis Root. 561 Music is sponsored by Live Music Community. It's where we film the podcast that you're listening to right now, and it's also where I work. Gavin, Hector's son, was a student here for a long time, and in many ways he's the musician he is today because of the teachers at Live Music Community. We taught him not only about his instrument, but also about being in a band, and his band, Unemployed Youth, accomplished a lot of goals, mostly band etiquette, how to work together, and all of the nitty-gritty that goes into being in a band on a day-to-day basis. The student signs up for lessons, learns their instrument, joins a real band, and decides the direction it goes in. And we can take people from very young age, 6 or 7 years old, all the way up to 80. There's no age limit here. We run an adult program for people who want to be in a band as adults, but really the main focus is on the kids and getting them playing together and in bands. We are also a studio, a live stream venue. We can record audio or video. The Killbillies live album, Warts and All, was recorded here. It was recorded during a live stream that we did during COVID. Justin had a great idea to record live streams during COVID. A ton of bands came in, and it was a real success. Outside of that, we can record albums, we can help you with your EPK, and we have full audio-visual capabilities here. LMC is in Palm Beach Gardens on the northwest corner of Military Trail and North Lake Boulevard. And if you go to livemusiccommunity.com, you have all the information you'll need right there. Yeah, we just listened to some ads, as per usual. And the thing that we always ask after we do that is, do you have any advice for young musicians or beginning musicians?
Mm-hmm. So I know there's a lot of musicians that start to get real picky with shows they play. I don't necessarily agree with that because I really feel it's all about timing, right place, right time.
Yeah.
So I feel if you want to get your name known, you get out there and you play anything that's offered. Granted, if you're having to spend hundreds of dollars to get there, you may have to reconsider. But, if it's financially feasible to you, definitely play.
I have a perfect example of that, and I agree with you. My friend Micah Scott got signed off the back of playing at Two Georges, in the corner of Two Georges.
Isn't that crazy?
In Boynton Beach. Yeah. And that's just like a restaurant
You
gig,
would never know. Right place, right time. I totally feel that way.
Yeah.
I have this guy that comes to a lot of my shows. His name is David Kuch, and he is he's part of RCA Records. And nobody ever knows he's there. When I notice him, I start to tell some of the bands, and then they get nervous. But I usually try to keep it under wraps until after they play and go introduce yourself. But you never know. He looks like a normal guy. You have no idea that this guy's there. And he's there because he's been looking for new bands.
Yeah.
So,
That's cool.
yeah.
That's awesome. And it also works the other way around. That's why you need to, present yourself well and be entertaining wherever you play.
Yep, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, that's probably what I would say. And, just it's important to also, I feel, to spend time outside of playing music with your band.
Yeah.
100%.
Because that's going to create so much chemistry when you're on stage.
Don't touch me. We do nothing together.
No, I agree with that. Just being, if you're not friends, it really shows, you know.
It
And
does.
sometimes you can get that weird electricity when people don't like each other, but usually it's better if they do.
Yeah. Yep, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, and what I found through a lifetime of playing music and being in bands is that it can be your best friends, and it usually is. My best friends have almost always been the people I've been playing music with.
Yep.
And it's just an added facet to the relationship you have with them. As you get to every now and again, you get to get up and play music together.
Yeah.
That friendship aspect of music is a big part of it for me.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times, it happens all the time, actually. I'm just like in a foul mood and I show up and 3 notes into the first song, I'm all smiles and hanging out with these guys and like, oh man, this is good.
Yeah.
This is good. This is
Yep.
where I need to be.
So
Yeah.
talking of that, we're about to head out to the Midwest, aren't we? On our jollies, we're going on a bit of a tour, which is so. Hector is a chalk artist and an amazing one of that. He makes all these 3D chalk. I don't know if you've ever seen any online or anything like that, but he makes these huge 3D chalk things, and he got a couple of festivals coming up in Minnesota, and we're going to go and basically Hector has organized a tour around it, so we're all going to go and do the chalk art. We're like his little helpers, like Hector's little helpers, and we sort of like help him color it in and stuff. And then we're going to play
Chalk-billies, as you like to call yourself.
Yeah,
instead of the Kill-billies.
Yeah, someone made us some shirts that said the chalk billies are so cool. And then we get to play shows around it, which is really cool because it also helps finance it a little bit, gives
Right.
us somewhere to stay at, and also a built-in crowd because we play usually at the festivals
Oh,
too.
okay.
And then all the artists that are all my
Nice.
friends all come out and watch us play, and then it's
Oh,
good.
that's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
We've dubbed this one the Chalk the Line Tour.
Oh, that's cool, though.
It's good times, no doubt. So, is there anything that you've got like lined up coming up? Is there anything in the pipes?
Just, June 15th, I've got a show at Anchors Away in Deerfield. It's more of a new metal show. Some really good bands. Medicine Room, one of my favorites.
Love those guys.
Yeah,
Absolutely
cool.
love them.
We need to get them on here.
They're the nicest
I don't know why
guys
we
you will
haven't.
ever,
Yeah.
like, I love them.
I love them. I don't know
Yeah.
why we haven't got them on here.
Yeah.
Everybody that knows me knows that they're some of my favorite.
I
Vember is going to be there.
Cool.
You definitely, you guys should come out. Newly Opposed. I've never seen them live. I've heard nothing but really good things about them.
Cool.
And Ilianad. I think that's all that's on that. Oh, Young Fiction. Young
Oh, there
Fiction's
you
playing.
Yeah.
How did I forget them?
I know I have a show that day and he can't come.
So you can't come.
So I can't
Darn.
come.
Yeah. It's true though. Just having you here and talking about bands is making me go, okay, so we're going to get these on, we're going to get that on. We need to talk more often.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like I do, and I'm sure Ben does as well. I get into these ruts sometimes where I'm like, oh man, we're running out of bands. But then I have a conversation like this, and then I go, Jesus Christ, there's like 40 bands we've just mentioned in the last hour that we
Yeah.
haven't had on here.
I'm telling you, I found that when I got all these submissions, I'm like, who are these people? Where have they been?
Yeah.
And it's amazing, like, that I've never heard of them doing what we do.
So do you tend to stick to like a typical genre or something, or do you just get or is it just if you like the band?
I like all music, but I do like the heavier stuff.
Sure.
That's why I had to have, because I would have had a whole heavy metal show. Like that's what it would have been. So that's another reason I had to have some other people pick the bands.
Do you like it when it gets like really heavy, like grindcore and stuff like that?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Awesome.
But so I haven't had country on my podcast, not because I don't like country. I do like country music,
Okay.
but there's just I don't. There's not many
Is the
around
scene
me.
is the scene around you?
There are more
if you
up
had
here.
if you had to put your finger, if you had to put your finger on one genre, is there one genre that sticks out more than the other in your area
I can't say my direct area.
in the South?
Because quite honestly, there's not many bands in Broward, quite honestly.
Okay,
Right.
South, new metal.
okay,
100%.
Because we get a lot of bands on here that are very reggae-ish style.
Oh, okay.
South,
And we also get
Florida reggae.
a lot of punk bands
And
too.
a lot of
It's like
punk
reggae
bands,
and
yeah.
punk bands.
Yeah. The punk is more up here, which I love punk, but yeah, it's more of the heavier new metal.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
We have had quite a lot of metal on, but it's been a minute. We need to get some metal bands
Yeah.
on.
And the shoegaze.
Oh,
The
really?
shoegaze, there's a lot of shoegaze down there too.
Cool. Yeah, that's becoming a bit of and where it kind of like dovetails with like sort of goth and that kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. There's a scene for that for sure. That band, do you know Violet Silhouette?
No,
You ever
I've never
those
heard of
guys?
them.
You would love those guys.
You would really
Yeah?
love those
Yeah,
guys.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
They're almost impossible to not love. Yeah. It's something that, so there was a poster that someone put up on like a South Florida musicians group on Facebook that was, it said like, why are there only tribute and cover bands in South Florida? And I chimed in at first and I was like, what are you talking about? But then I kept watching it and it ended up having about 400 comments on it, and like at least 3/4 of them were like, we're an original band. Like, what are you talking about? Where have you been? To the point where I like reposted it and wrote this big thing just being like, yes, there are a lot of cover bands and yes, there are a lot of tribute bands, but there are also a lot of original. There's just a lot of bands.
Right, yeah.
You know?
There are a lot of bands.
Yeah, so whatever you need, really. We do pretty well down here, I think.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of venues around here, which is a shame.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places where music is, but like actual original music live venues, there's not a lot of venues.
Yeah.
And I think that is a bit of a shame.
It
There's
is.
something that we've been trying to do over the past couple of years is go to venues that don't usually do that kind of thing and
Yeah.
kind of try and persuade them to.
Right,
You know?
yeah.
Yeah, and Ricky does a great job.
Yeah, I was gonna
of
say,
that.
do you know Ricky Balouf?
I don't.
He was in a band, or is in a band called The Shake, and then he's got a couple
yeah,
other
Ricky.
projects.
Yeah, I know
Ricky.
Okay, yeah. So Ricky's got a bunch of other projects and stuff. So Ricky's been doing a lot of shows that he's been putting on together, and he's starting to work with us a lot, trying to do different shows, and that's usually his MO. He'll go somewhere, like Original Fat Cats or something, like they do cover bands, and then he'll go to them and say, okay, well, what's your budget for a cover band that for that night? Okay, great. And then he'll go out and he'll find like for example, I don't know what it is, but for example, let's say it's $500.
Right.
He'll go and then he'll get 5 original bands and be like, hey guys, give me 30, 40 minutes, I'll give you $100 and you get to play to a room, and so it's a place that doesn't normally have, and he's done that with a lot of venues.
Yeah, it
and
works.
he's done it
Just as long as there's people in the place.
Yeah.
that most people
and he's
don't
done
get.
it successfully. So they, like he does these Sunday brunch, they call it a Sunday brunch. There's no food, but it's these Sunday brunch at AAYC in Delray.
Okay.
And it's, I think, once a month or something. And
Yeah.
and he does different, like one month it'll be a punk thing, another month it'll be reggae. He tries
That's
to do
cool.
themes or whatever, acoustic, etc. And it'll usually be like 3, 4, 5 bands. And here's a place where on a Sunday, they have a handful of people that walk in and that's it. And now he's created like where once a month it's the place to be.
That's cool.
To the point that they just had a national act, and I honestly can't remember who the person was. It was a rap artist, but it was a national act. Hasn't done anything in a while or whatever. One of those types of national acts, and they booked this national act there and paid a lot of money for him.
Wow.
And from what I understand, the original days that Ricky does there did better for them than this national
You're
act did.
kidding.
Yeah.
I
And
love that.
I love that.
Totally,
I love
man.
that. Yeah. So we've been trying to do more and more stuff like that with Ricky and,
Right.
and do things like that. The 15th of June, unfortunately, what we're doing is the Shake and Bake at Respectables, and that's going to be a food drive that he
that's
he
nice.
started a few years ago, and he's like,
Yeah.
everybody does a food drive in November and December, and he's like, nobody does one in the middle of the year, but
Right.
people still need to eat. So
True.
so he started this food drive, and it's
That's a
just
good idea.
This will be the third one, and so far, like the first one came in really well. The second one, they doubled the amount of food they brought in, and now we're doing this
Wow.
third one, and we're getting a bunch of bands involved and stuff.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm playing like 3 times or something. It's gonna be good.
I wanted to do an event where everybody brought something for a dog or donate all the money. I'm trying to think like for like rescue animals.
Mhm. Yeah.
I wanted to do something like that. I haven't quite figured it all
Have you
out
heard?
in my head.
Have you heard of Barkback Benefit?
No, but no.
So Spread the Dub has been doing a Barkback Benefit for 9 years now, I think.
Yeah, it's
9
pretty
years.
good.
It's once a
it
year in
at?
October.
It's Lake Worth
Yeah.
in the park there. It used to be.
It used to be a Matthews.
I almost went to it.
But now it's Bryant Park.
Young Cassidy and Billy Doom play at it this past year?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I was going to go bring my dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Something happened and I didn't.
They do it really well.
Oh, so they do that.
They set it up with vendors, and they have the dog rescues come in, and they adopt dogs out. They have firefighters do like a
God, I
catwalk
love
thing
that.
with the dogs and
Yeah,
everything.
it's like, have you ever been to like the dog racing and there's like a little booth there with like the old dogs, and you can basically take, you can adopt a dog.
Yeah.
They kind of have that. They have like a tent with all the dogs. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And it works well. And I
That's
think
awesome.
pretty much every year, all the dogs that go to it like go to homes. It's crazy.
I love that. I wish I would have went. I don't remember what happened. I had planned the whole entire time that I was going, and something happened.
Yeah, they do it, and they do it really well. So if there was something like that you wanted to start in the South, Spread the Dub. Those guys are the ones you need to talk to.
Okay.
'Cause
I actually have
had-
the logo for Barkback
Yeah.
on my ankle.
yeah,
Do you really?
tattooed on. Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
there it is.
Yeah, those guys, all those guys, man. Mick,
Wow.
Hunter,
Yeah.
Kevin, all those guys. Any one of those guys would be thrilled to have like, something in the South similar to what
Right.
they're doing here in the North.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely have to reach out.
Yeah, they're very conscientious fellas. I feel like the music scene is in South Florida. The thing that I have enjoyed about it is that a lot of people in it want the same things out of it, which is like, a certain sense of community, like a friendship group, like a little bit of a support system. It's there, and
World peace.
So many nice people. Like, of course, just like anything, there's people who with big egos and people with
Sure.
people with like who are a pain in the ass or whatever.
Yeah.
But
You could say
but
it,
by
mate.
and large, by and large, everyone's cool as
Yeah.
hell.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed my time here. I've lived here 13 years, and I just as time goes on, I just start liking it more and more. The more people I
Yeah.
meet,
Right.
Do you find like the scene down there? Because like you said, we've been finding a lot of camaraderie and everybody supporting everybody and everybody uplifting everybody, and it's never a competition. It just always seems like everybody's helping everybody. Do you find that a lot down
I
by you guys?
do. I do. There are those bands. There are
Sure.
some.
There's always some. Yeah.
that we'll just leave it
Yeah.
at they're
I
not.
gotcha.
yeah, sure.
But for the
I
most
gotcha.
part, yes.
yeah,
Especially with the show I did for the newer bands, they all, from beginning to end, they all stayed there. They hung out. They supported the bands all the way to the
I
end.
see that a lot, and I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, me too.
I can see that it would be a little more cutthroat, like because you're so much nearer like a big city,
Yeah.
And like I think the stakes start to get a bit higher and
Yeah.
stuff, So I can see that a little bit. Makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. It's been good times doing a music podcast, and
Yeah.
the other cool thing about music podcast, you never run out of content.
No,
Like ever.
no.
So something I want to ask you is if someone was going to like watch your podcast, what's your format? Like how do you do it? Like what?
So they get to my house.
Yeah,
I said, well, you guys say how
give 'em
techie you
cookies.
became with COVID.
yeah,
I am not techie at all. I'm
Yeah.
lucky that they make programs that I can log into.
yeah.
If anybody moved my camera, we're in big trouble.
Gotcha.
So everything's connected. I had a guy come over, connect everything. If it gets
Yeah.
disconnected, the podcast will be done because he's moved up
Gotcha.
to Gainesville.
Yeah.
So
Does anyone ever like play music? on it?
sometimes, like I have guitars in my loft, and
Oh, cool.
like I just had Veticetti, who's another great band also that you should probably get on. They played a live songs. It depends on where it goes. It's very
Sure.
much more laid back. I have like little segments. Like we get upstairs, they all sit down. I get my drinks served. Like
Nice.
and then I start off. Basically, obviously they have to introduce themselves and stuff, and then we talk about the band, their future goals, like what they've put out, and like how they feel about the local scene.
Yeah.
And then I have a segment called "You Can Tell Mom Anything."
Right.
So, not like creepy questions, but I ask questions that will help their followers get to know them as individual people as opposed to musicians.
Yeah.
And then we do rapid fire.
Nice.
And then we do like a little recap and then we end it.
That's really cool. I think we need to get a bit of a rapid fire situation going. That'd be fun.
A little bit.
Because if you sort of like put people under a little bit of pressure, sometimes they say the
It
funniest
never
things.
turns out to be rapid fire. It turns out to be, oh my God, I can't think. Oh, next, go to him first. And then it's.
I had a thought today on the way here about, we got the 3 camera set up and Justin's in there pushing the buttons or whatever. I actually considered like we should invest in a 4th camera and put it in there with Justin because every now and then Justin wants to say something and he says at the end of the podcast, "Oh, I wish I could have chimed in." Yeah. And it made me think of
Should
like
be able to chime in.
Well, I was thinking like Howard Stern and stuff, like the way the producers and stuff on Howard Stern have
Yeah.
in the booth, they have a camera and they have their own mic
Yeah.
or whatever. They can chime in and they can say
That's
whatever
a
they
good
want.
idea.
That is a good idea.
It'd be cool if every now and then he could switch the camera angle to himself or something and be like, "Oh, hey, by the way, blah blah blah."
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So,
And I also
although that could be
feel like-
dangerous too,
I also feel like on the podcast we should credit him as pushing buttons or whatever.
or whatever. No, of course. Well, I said producer. The producer which pushes buttons and or
That's
whatever.
funny.
So talking of like where you feel like you're going and like hopes and dreams. What do you see for Stage Mom in the future?
Well, I'm probably still doing the same stuff. If I get a studio, I'll bring all my furniture there. My end all goal, and everybody thinks I'm crazy, I would love to like my up next music fest that I have, like your 561 Music Fest.
Yeah.
I would love to make it really big, kind of like just bring back like the Warped Tour. That's my
Yeah.
dream. I might be in my deathbed and it may have to be carried on by my kid.
Yeah.
But I would love to do something like, because at the end of the day, it started with locals.
Sure.
And so,
So let me ask you that because I've had this debate a lot with a lot of people. I've had this debate a lot. 561 Music, much like your podcast, is local bands.
right.
And we pride ourselves in local bands. But I've had this debate a lot about like where do you draw the line and say like the idea is to promote the local bands. Like where
Right.
do you draw the line and say like, okay, well, man, I have this great opportunity to get Dave Grohl on the podcast, but he's not local. So, like where do you
I had Midas Yahoo on mine.
Yeah.
So I kind of like, if I had the opportunity to get Dave Grohl, I would definitely cross the line
I would
and
sleep
have
with-
him on.
I would sleep with Dave Grohl.
But
Let's
I
just
would-
put that out there now.
I would say like I would have him maybe give his input on what he feels these local bands should be doing.
Exactly.
Like I'd turn it into a local band thing, but Dave Grohl would be there.
But as far as that's as far as the podcast, but then as far as like the shows, would you feel like you're betraying the local bands if you brought in a headliner?
No, because I think that's a dream for every local band.
See, and that's
Yeah.
how I feel. I feel like
I
if
feel the exact same way.
like 561 Music Festival, if I had 19 local bands and one big ass headliner that's going to draw so many people that those 19 bands are going to have a hell of a crowd to play
Yep.
to. I think that we're doing them a service.
And you know what? That's
Yep.
something that's missing in South Florida because a lot of, not completely, but a bit, because we're slightly off the beaten track of touring bands.
We are.
And so if we can get like those mid-sized bands coming down and playing shows, we're doing the scene a service.
Well, it sounds like we need to combine forces.
We do.
and do something like
We
that.
do, because I don't know how to get a sponsor. I've never had one sponsor. You guys seem to have that all figured out. So
I wouldn't say all figured out, but we're almost there.
like, half the battle, you got a sponsor.
For the festival, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. That we've got that pretty figured out. And as we've grown each year, we've been fortunate enough to have more and more sponsors.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's been great.
I
And
got to tell
because
you,
of that-
it's not something that, but it's a bit of a hustle. You know,
is a
It's
hustle.
like trying to figure that out.
It is a hustle.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about the sponsorship, as I'm sure you're well aware, is that you put on a festival, it costs money.
Yep.
And so with the sponsors, we're able to charge. We had 20 bands. normally you go to Respectables or something and you pay $10 at the door
Right.
and you see a band or
Right.
2 bands. If you're lucky, maybe 3 tops. You don't see 20 bands all day long in
Right.
a festival format with 2 stages and food trucks and et cetera, et cetera. But we're able to keep that cost down because we had the sponsors.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's either that or become independently wealthy somehow.
Yeah.
Well, it's either that or Ben and I are moving into into a house together because we're both going to end up divorced,
Well, we're already in the same bed together.
That's true. That's
Basically,
true. That's fair.
basically
Well, you
happened
guys
already.
did discuss getting that for the
I'm
podcast.
saying.
So.
I'm in. All right. Well, that's cool. I was just curious what your take on it was because
Yeah.
I've had that debate with a lot of people a lot of times.
You
and
know
it's-
what? I think that it's time. But the way that you put it is right. It's like it doesn't have to on the podcast. It doesn't have to be local bands as long as at least some portion of the conversation is about local music.
Right, Sure, yeah.
At that
sure.
point, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
And with a big band, if you're putting on local supports, that's better almost.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, Ben and I have done a few episodes now where we did Zoom episodes with members of larger bands, and
Okay.
and we started calling that segment "Passing Through" 561 Music Passing Through, and it's a band like we talked to Dave McWayne from Big D and the Kids Table,
Okay.
and so we did a Zoom episode with them, and it was basically. It was called the Passing Through episode, and it was because their band was passing
Right,
through. They were
exactly,
playing
yeah.
at Revolutions, as a
Oh,
matter
cool.
of fact, and so they were passing through South Florida, and
That's
so
neat.
it
And
wasn't
I
a local
happened to have
band.
written a song called "Just Passing Through," so we nicked the music from
Yeah,
that and
yeah,
made
yeah.
it.
So it wasn't that he was local, but he was, they were passing through our local area,
Right.
and so. We changed it up and we made it a little bit of a different segment, kind of, a little different type of episode, so that it doesn't like kind of chip away at our
Right.
core episodes. But yeah, I feel
I don't know.
I feel pretty good.
I think you might worry a little bit too
I
much
know.
about
I
that.
just overthink it too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
think it too much.
Ultimately, if it's a good guess.
So Dave Grohl, if you're listening,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah,
all
exactly.
about having you come.
Obviously, he's going to be listening.
There's a lot of foods. There's a lot of foods that need to be fighting here.
that's
you need
all
to
he
be fighting.
does is listen to this podcast. He does nothing else.
100%. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. That's what he told me last week.
Well, listen, Kim, it was such a pleasure
Oh,
to
it was a
properly
pleasure.
meet you.
Yeah.
And I guess
No hot seat
we
questions
got to
for
figure out a way to. We got to figure out a way to do something together in the future.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
And I'm so glad to have learned more about you. And keep on keeping on, doing good stuff in the world.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wicked. All right. Well, is there anything we got to talk? So we got some gigs this weekend, right? Let's just
I think
check
we
it.
have a gig this weekend. It's a slow weekend for us.
We have
Carson's
Carson's
Tavern
Tavern
on Saturday,
Yeah, that's right.
which is a little bit of a faux pas on my part because we don't have a gig Friday and we don't have a gig Sunday, but we do have a gig Saturday, which happens to be my wife's birthday.
Oh, yikes!
So yeah,
It's all right. Just make a real big fuss of her on Friday.
yeah.
Or bring her.
She's not going to want to go.
Okay. Well,
She doesn't like to celebrate her birthday anyway, so
we'll
it's fine.
figure it out. Don't worry.
It's fine. It's
Don't
fine.
worry.
I won't
The
worry.
fact that you have Friday off is better than normal weekends.
Yes. Oh no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then next weekend,
Kelly, we love you. We love you, Kelly.
yeah, next weekend we'll be in Minnesota. So.
Yeah. I just can't believe it. Like home of Prince and what else is Minnesota?
Just Prince. They have nothing else.
All right, nice one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for
See you
coming on.
later.
Everybody sings. It's what we